Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Cosmic Weather Report. Kind of a little working title for now. It isn't exactly just a weather report though, so if you're just looking for what are the planets doing right now, go consult an ephemeris or look at the chart. This is more of an analysis of what the planets are doing right now to us and how we see that reflect out in current events and in our own experiences and things like that. So I invite you to take a seat, find somewhere comfortable, ideally. So I'm recording these from a meditative state. And so if you want to join me on the astral, that is always welcome. Hey, I see a few of you pulling up your chairs already. Nice to see you. So yeah, I am just kind of feeling into this moment to see what is ready to come through. I am feeling a little bit frustrated because last night I recorded like 45 minutes plus, and I really felt like, man, it was hitting, like I was hitting all the points, like firing on all cylinders, and then I opened my eyes and checked my phone and there was no voice memo running. And it cut out after like 5 minutes. So yeah, that was a little annoying. Oh, it's 1:11. Yeah, so today is Thursday. It's October 9th. In the time matrix when I'm recording this, but as we know, like time is linear for the as we perceive it. We've been conditioned to perceive time in a linear manner, going straight forward into the future, but what we have intuited for millennia is that time is kind of spirals and dances with itself. So wherever you are on the spirals of time, just consider this a little way to kind of pop together and brush up against an adjacent timeline. And if you have enough experience working in the astral, you know that there's no such thing as time or space there. And so it doesn't matter when you're listening to this. I just like to ground that and anchor that because I do talk about astrology, which is, kind of relates to the time matrix in a way, but it's more of a way of connecting the time matrix, this forced linearity of time, back into the cyclical nature, the flowering, the weaving of time. So yeah, I invite you to sit down and close your eyes if that's available to you. I recommend, maybe not laying down with your eyes closed unless you really need a nap, in which case be my guest. But sitting upright in a place that you're supported, but also able to kind of tune out from the real world, quote unquote, for a little while. If you're driving, I hope that you're on a road trip on a long highway with with minimal traffic, right? Not in gridlock in the city, unless that's what is supportive for you. So no wrong way to do it. Just some gentle suggestions on ways to get the most out of these sessions. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling into my body to see what is alive for me right now. I've been working on the November newsletter for my my research society membership. And I'm coming up with like way too much content right now, which is such a good thing to have, like such a good problem to have. But it also does kind of, it can kind of feel like this is all the content that wants to come through right now. Like I can batch it out and plan it, but is it going to still be fresh and relevant next month, the month after, when I finally have the space to share it? So I may explore making the journal a little longer. The format that I like, the printer format that I'm using, is really best for like 16 to 24 pages, I think. I haven't tried to go up to 32, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Yeah, and so in preparing the November journal, I've been looking forward, right, for November's transits and November's energy. And I think I talked about this a lot in episode 4, about this, like this moment where we have the three of the outer planets, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, all like retrograding back into the previous sign that they've been spending time in, before they will resume direct motion and then go back into their new signs. Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and Uranus and Gemini, as kind of this moment of like relieving the tension on the bow in order to string it. And when they go into the new signs, then there's going to be this arrow of tension, of like release, tension and release. So one thing that I've noticed that you would miss if you were just scanning like the lists of like aspects that are made, is that Jupiter and Saturn are very, very, very close to a trine right now. But it will not be exact until I think after Jupiter leaves Cancer. But they're going to be kind of dancing together in this 120, this easy flow type of arrangement for the next several months. I think it's not until maybe next spring or summer. And I'm gonna check my ephemeris for that, because that feels like an important information. It'll be, let's see, Jupiter, Saturn. June of 2023, we're gonna see a trine from 2023. Lol. Yeah, that was a go. 2025, Cancer. Jupiter retrogrades, and then it goes forward, and then it enters Leo. So in June of 2026, Saturn will already be at the 15th degree of Leo, of Aries, before Jupiter even enters Leo. And then it's going to retrograde, and there will be a trine in August of 2026, or September, like the last day of August, first day of September, depending on the time zone. And then let's see if that's going to happen again, or if because it's Saturn retrograding, so it might not. Let's see. 19, oh, it'll be close. 17, 16. Oh, it is going to happen again. Okay. So there will be another meeting of the trine in April of 2027, and then you go direct, and then Jupiter will catch up at the end, or in July, it looks like. Let's see. Yeah, July of 2027, Jupiter and Saturn will make a trine from the third decan of Leo and Aries, so in the 28th degree. So they're going to be in this arrangement for a good amount of time, and won't be exact again until, like I just said, until next year. But right now they're within a fraction of like just a couple of minutes. And they'll come even closer in November before Jupiter goes retrograde. It is notable that Jupiter stations retrograde on November 11th at 25 degrees 09 minutes of Cancer. And then 2 weeks later, Saturn stations direct at 25:09 of Pisces. So like the same degree, the same minute of Cancer and Pisces. So again, yeah, super, super close to the trine, but not ever exacting. And so that's going to be this kind of underlying flavor of all of the relationship between Jupiter and Saturn for the next 2 years, until that third pass is exact and they move on. So it'll be in effect for the entirety of Jupiter in Leo, which will be 2026, essentially characterized by Jupiter in Leo. And yeah, that's getting ahead of ourselves though. So, I think right now it's just notable to note that they are like very close, but they're not going to be exact, kind of like Saturn and Neptune have done. And we've also seen that, we see that with other planets fairly frequently. So something you can miss if you're just like skimming the list of transits or of aspects in your honeycomb planner, which I'm more than guilty of doing. By the way, if you don't have a honeycomb planner, go get one right now. Not kidding. Like, this is the most important. Yeah, it's so good. It's so powerful to have that personalized date book of transits. I've been getting them, I think, for like 7 or 8 years running now. Maybe not that, maybe like 5 or 6, but a while. Yeah, not sponsored, just, a big fan. Yeah, I'm going to take a moment and kind of feel into what is ready to come up next. So yesterday, the sun moved into gate 57, and the earth therefore moved into gate 51. And so we have this kind of piece of harmony a little bit, although the earth in 51 is definitely like it's a firecracker, but it's the earth, so it's an interesting dichotomy there. The hexagrams here are they're both 2 of the double hexagrams. So 57 is wind over wind, and 51 is thunder over thunder. Wind over wind is, it's like the archetype of the wind, of air, of that gentle persistence and powerful force that wind can be. And 51 being that archetype of thunder, like the thunderclap, the lightning strike, the bolt, the jolt, I think jolt is how it's often translated. And so this moment it feels like it's lending a little bit of, so 57 is frequently associated with intuition, because it is that wood archetype, or that element of air, of wood, where the vibrations in the air are, we're like exquisitely attuned to them, and we can pick up information out of the ether without really consciously knowing where it's coming from. And the gene key 57 is the shadow of unease. So this is like anxiety, that like underlying feeling of something is not quite right, but I don't know why. And then the gift of intuition and the city of clarity. And then when we look at 51, we have the shadow of agitation. So anxiety and agitation, right? So unease, the shadow of 57, is very internal. It's like kind of a drawing into oneself because the outside environment feels vaguely threatening and unsafe, and you can't quite articulate why, but you have this like feeling in the pit of your stomach of like, not quite sure what I need to do here, but this is not right. And then looking at the programming partner at 51, the shadow of agitation is when you take that and you push it outward, right? So it's the same sensation, it's just whether it's directed at yourself or directed at the world. Agitation, kind of just like walking around like shaking people, or like shaking, like telling people to snap out of it, right? And I can relate to that sometimes, right? And then when we look at the gift, we have the gift of intuition in gate 57 and the gift of initiative in gate 51. So intuition is that little whispering voice, that you hear on the air that says, that gives you information. And then initiative is when you do something with it, right? It's like starting something because you have this intuition, this new knowledge that came in through through not traditional channels, right? And then the cities of clarity and awakening, right? Cities are so hard to talk about, because they're so flowery and beyond words that I don't think that I want to go into those right now, but it's just the highest frequency of each of these pairing partners. And I have a deep relationship with this pairing partner because the 57 is my my design sun, and so 51 is my design earth. So I have this, like really strongly in my design. And I'm like, yeah, I've spent a lot of time contemplating them and embodying them. So the cool thing about this transit with the sun in 57 and in the earth in 51 is that it lights up two of the long-term transits that I'm personally undergoing, because we have outer planets in each of the in gates that meet each of the other, the gates opposite them. So with 57, the sun in 57 right now, we have Uranus in gate 20, completing that 57-20 channel that connects the spleen to the throat. So this is like a direct expression of intuition in the now, like what's happening at the moment, whether that's within your body or on like kind of in the ether. And then the 51 in the heart center is connected with gate 25, which has Neptune in it in the G center. And this channel is often referred to as the channel of initiative, or like I don't put too much stock in Ra-Uruhu's names, so I don't like really try to memorize them. But this is like it's a channel of going first, of being like doing the thing, because they're both Aries gates, right? 25 is the beginning of Aries, and then 51 is kind of, we're kind of in the middle of Aries, but they're both that spring forward, that doing it, like go first, take the initiative. So, yeah, maybe just take some time and sit with that and see like, how does this collective transit feel for you on a body level and on like a in your etheric body and within your body graph? Do you notice it? Does it spur you to action? It's, those two definitions are split. So they don't necessarily talk to each other, but they're working together, right? Yeah. But it may not be split for you, right? You might have channels that or gates and channels that kind of that sync them up together. So that's something that you need to know about your own body graph, and that's why That's why I teach how to go beyond like type and strategy, which I think just short circuit your understanding and take away the most powerful tool. Yeah, so just kind of feeling in like, how does this definition land in my body? How can I best use this transit? It just began yesterday, so we have about 4 or 5 more days of this, like these channels being defined, this split definition for everybody. What wants to come through for you right now? What wants to be created? How can you express your like your intuition in the immediate now? Especially with Uranus in the gate of the now, in gate 20, right? That's just like this like fiery, like unexpected and just initiative, like doing it, just fucking like, don't think about it, just make it happen. Yeah, and since I have 57 natally, and I've been experiencing Uranus in 20 for the last several months. It's like I'm really enjoying this transit. I'm getting a lot done, to be totally honest. I'm able to get out of my head, and I'm able to create things, and I'm able to do the work that I want to be doing, and it's really a blessing. It's really been a blessing for me. Yeah. So just kind of noticing how does that land for you, and if there's anything that feels like it wants to be expressed right now, like always feel free to like hit pause and go express yourself and then come back to me later. These are, it's asynchronous, so there's no need to just sit down for an hour and listen. You can take a break and go do the thing that just popped into your head right now, and then come back after you're done. Yeah, how did that go for you? Did you notice that anything shifts for you in your space or in your body after kind of hearing and seeing this discussion about these the Sun and Earth transit and these outer planet transits? Yeah. What else feels ready to be looked at right now? So we have the outer planet configuration. We have like I mentioned in I think 2 nights ago in that issue, we have kind of like this like loaded bow of the outer planets in this sextile trine configuration, and then whenever something passes through that point of the first degrees of Libra, it's like we're shooting arrows at them, and they light this kite pattern up. Venus is going to be the last one to go through that very soon. I should have this in front of me. Let me see, do I? When is Venus enter? Yeah, Venus enters Libra on the 13th, right? I think I remember saying that. So like 4 days until Venus enters Libra, and she's going to trigger that whole cascade of aspects to all the outer planets. But with Venus, it's not going to be, just thinking about when Mars entered into Libra at the beginning of September, right? That was like, those were some really rough times, right? When was that? Let me just make sure that I got that right. Mars entered Libra. Oh, Mars actually, that's Mercury. Was it end of August? It was the beginning of August was when Mars entered Libra, August 6th, and then Mercury in September, and of course the Sun at the end of September. And so now Venus is like the last one and is going to catch up. And kind of smooth things over, right? Like Venus is going to come in and be like, help us reflect and see how these things shifted our values and how, whether they were aligned with our values, the ways that we reacted to what we see in the world outside of ourselves. And maybe helping to create some more lasting peace on Earth. Though that's a pipe dream, but we have to keep pipe dreaming it, right? We can't give up, because otherwise they'll win, we'll lose. Yeah. So I'm just looking to see what else wants to be spoken to. I know that in previous episodes I've gone really deep on how doing your own shadow work is the most important work that you can do right now. And I'm remembering that that's actually a lot of what I talked about last night when the recording didn't hit. So I think that is, that probably wants to come up. But I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that's more pressing, kind of in the collective, in the ether, and in my own self. Yeah, so I think what I was on about last night when my voice recording didn't work, and I keep checking, so I know we're still going today. What was coming through was about how it can feel like spiritual bypassing to focus so intensively upon doing your own healing work right now. And I want to argue and emphasize that in times like this, especially if you are a person of privilege, wherever on the intersection of the, wherever on the intersections of spectrums that you fall for that, whether you are, have white skin, a male body, cisgender body, an able body, all of these things, wherever you are intersectionally, the more privilege you have to, and I'm going to define that by the ability to kind of tune out of politics, and not, you're not having to fight on a daily basis for your life. It's important to do the inner work at times like this. Like, yes, it's also important to do outer work and to support and go to protests and, contribute to bail funds and send money to families in Gaza and all of these things. But if you are not healed and whole on your inside, on the inside of yourself, your actions in the outside world are going to fall flat and have the wrong effect. So let's imagine a white person who decides to board a boat, or even just go to a protest and doesn't know why they're doing it and hasn't done their own decolonization and their own repair of systems of white supremacy within themselves, right? They may end up causing harm to people of color. They may end up getting finding unintentionally causing harm, I think, whether that is by failing to speak up or step in when, if the protest if like cops come in and start getting violent, failing to use your white privilege to reduce the harm to somebody of color that's being arrested or being brutalized, or whether that is like on the extreme end. Let's say you get on a boat and you sail to Gaza and you get captured and kidnapped by the Israeli military, and then we know that they're torturing people. And what if you like share information under duress that could directly lead to harm? You know, it's important not to put yourself in that line of fire, in that way of putting your body on the line, unless you are so rock solid in your faith and ability to withstand whatever punishment, whatever torture comes to your physical body. And you can only be that sure when you are, when you have embodied the knowledge of our unity, of our, there's no separateness. And so having bodily autonomy and safety for you just doesn't matter anymore, because you can see that other people do not have that. If you're doing it for anything other than that most fundamental reason, then you need to go and you need to do the work yourself, right? And I know that seems pretty harsh, and it also seems like maybe it could be taking people away from the front. But I really think that when we all do the work to heal and to bring all of our parts into wholeness within ourselves, the change will kind of automatically be reflected in the outside world, right? If there were not people in the US who felt powerless and needed a strong, quote unquote, strong leader, then we wouldn't have that asshole in power, right? I'm not even gonna grace his name with coming out of my mouth, like, no. But like that election, like, yes, it was manipulated, yes, it was stolen, but it's a lot easier to manipulate and steal the election when there's people that you can buy and there's people that you can manipulate into being afraid of the other. Yeah, so this was something else that came through last night. And I apologize that it really, of course, the best podcasts are the ones that don't record. I don't want to keep bemoaning that fact, but I do want to try to hit on all the points that I hit on in that podcast out into the ether that didn't record, and so it might feel like I'm jumping around a little bit. But I know I touched on this, I think probably in episode 2 when we were talking about how most of the people, like all of the people in power, are children, right? And most adults in our world are effectively children. And it's because we experience these traumatic events, whether they're capital T traumas of violence and abuse, or lowercase t traumas of, neglect and being ignored, or being, having our concerns dismissed and things like that. Anytime a developing human, or even fully developed, but especially during childhood, anytime somebody encounters these traumatic events, a portion of your energy and a portion of your psyche is fractured off and stays with that traumatized self until it's safe to reintegrate and to kind of process what happened. And so if you undergo multiple traumas and continually are traumatized, then you end up as a fractured human with all of these different parts that have different needs and different needs that aren't getting met, and different behaviors. And you're not going to act as a coherent individual. You're going to act irrationally, especially when you get triggered, especially when you get hungry or tired or drunk or any of these things. And those those fractured selves and those parts of ourselves that have been isolated and alone and lonely and injured and traumatized are the parts that it's so easy for fascist despots to come in and control us through, right? Because they can offer some semblance of what that part of us actually needed and still needs, because they're still in that same spot, that same place. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about doing this internal work. And it's not easy. It's going to take time. And you need to be patient with yourself, and you especially need to recognize that it is an ongoing process that is never complete. But I think that you can do, like, for most people who have led a reasonably comfortable life, the majority of the work can be done within the span of a year, 2 years, maybe 3, in the right setting, with the right support tools, the right technologies. One technology that is kind of the more accepted in the mainstream right now is IFS, or internal family systems therapy. I actually work with an IFS therapist. I really recommend it. And it's the same process as like shamanic soul retrieval, or any, going through deep, like, psychic training. You're going to find these things too. You're going to go and you're going to run into these selves. And it's, ideally you can meet them consciously, and you can bring them back into wholeness with your entire system. But I think I've heard a lot of criticism on the internet saying that IFS is colonized shamanic soul retrieval, and I don't disagree with that, but I also, we need to recognize that, yes, but insurance. Right? I can pay with that. I can pay for that with my health savings account, right? I couldn't pay for a shaman with my HSA. So there's benefits and downsides to going with a more colonized and Western, quote unquote, Western way of looking at it. But hopefully your therapist is decolonized and trauma aware and capitalist informed and things like that. But yeah, I'm privileged. I have a great one, and she's amazing, and we've been doing this work together for a couple of years, and it's not done. And I also did 18 months of psychic training with the same cohort the whole way through, and then also a couple of other psychic training and energy healing work where you do have to encounter these things, because if you're going to be a psychic reader or an energy healer, you have to know what's yours, and in order to know what's yours, you have to face it and you have to heal it, and you have to know how to deal with things outside of yourself that are trying to manipulate you. And it's a great way to regain your own sovereignty, or to gain your own sovereignty, is to own your energetic body and your energetic being. I'm not qualified to teach that modality. I do highly recommend. I have a couple of practitioners and teachers that I really recommend. So if that's something you're interested in, just reach out and let me know. But yeah, I mean, you can do it by yourself, but I don't recommend it. It's better to be with other people, and with community, and with people who have the capacity to help you heal. Because that's the whole work that we're doing, right? Is we need to come back into wholeness, not only within ourselves, but also within all of humanity. And I think the point here, and I think where I'm going with this, is that until you come into a reasonable state of wholeness within yourself, within your own psyche, and understanding why you do the things that you do, and learning to overcome the urge to avoid or to feel guilty or ashamed of parts of yourself, the more whole you can be within yourself, the more easily you will integrate into the wider field of awareness, which is what is kind of starting to bubble up right now. And this, I think we see a lot of references to this in the like 2027 prophecies, both in human design and in the gene keys. I don't put a ton of stock into that particular number, because the problem with prophesizing a year is that then that year comes and goes, and like things didn't really happen, and so people dismiss it. But I do think that on a large scale, we are undergoing a psychic awakening, and we are going to get to a point, back to a point where we are more connected with each other in an intuitive and an automatic way, where we won't have to use words and language nearly as much to communicate, because what you can communicate through images with feelings attached to them is so much deeper and so much more rich than what you can communicate in a linear string of vibrations in the air or marks on a page, right? It's orders of magnitude more information that you can share. And we see, we see this in all sorts of disciplines. We see this happening in, between parents and their children who have ataxia, in the telepathy tapes. I haven't actually listened to the whole thing. I just listened to a couple interviews with the author. I'm not particularly surprised by any of the findings that she found, and so I didn't really feel the need to listen to the whole thing. But if you're curious, or if you have listened to the telepathy tapes, I'd love to know what you think. And also in any sort of transcendent experience that people have. So I'm not a big UFO person. I'll preface this by saying that, but I do. I have had some phases in my life where I've kind of dove into that set of lore a little bit, and that's another thing that you see commonly in abduction reports and encounter reports with interdimensionals and so-called aliens, is that there's always this mechanism of psychic communication where if it's like people say some things like, it felt like they were beaming images and feelings into my head, right? And I think we do communicate this way more than we know, more than our quote unquote Western culture wants us to believe. And that once we start to realize that we're all here together, and there's no need to feel guilty or ashamed of any parts of yourself, because we've all just been playing a part, right? We're all just acting as essentially little puppets and little that has negative connotations, but if you think of yourself as an individual with agency, which you are, but you can also, that can make you feel kind of isolated and alone. But if you think of yourself as your physical body with your eyes and your senses and your hands and your feet, your whole body, as being like a window into 3D reality, or the 3D matrix world, whatever this level of reality that we're experiencing together here is, as like a window and a glove box through which God interacts with other versions of God's self, right? And when I say like a glove box, I don't mean like in your car, but I mean like in a lab. If there's chemicals or biohazards or things that you need to keep very safe, but you still need to manipulate them with your hands, you have this glass box that has a set of gloves attached to the side, and you put your hands into the glove box, and you can do, you can manipulate the, you can do the experiments and do the process, the samples and things like that through this interface. And if you start to think of that as like, this is actually what the body is, right? My eyes are windows through which God peers, and my hands are like gloves in the glove box that God uses to reach out and manipulate the world. But we're all those interfaces. Like, we're all just little ways for God to interact with God. And most of us are here just acting playing a part in a play, in order to work out the karma. And this is something that Gene Keys gets really deep into, this idea of unwinding the karmic lessons and the karmic tangles that we found ourselves in. That everything, that every harm ever perpetuated onto another human kind of creates these, and Richard Rudd will say that it's like it creates these genetic sequences that are literally in your DNA, which, as somebody with a scientific background, like, that's a stretch, right? Maybe it's true, but there's no way to prove it. But even if you don't believe that it's literally in the DNA, you can think of it as like these etheric, like rubber bands that when you inflict harm upon another person, you wind the rubber band around another time. And through these cycles of incarnation and just like living out the human life and living under the systems that we live under, just becoming aware of where are you winding those karmic loops tighter and where are you unwinding. And I think a lot of us, especially in like the millennial generation, and younger Gen X, who are kind of like the people who would probably be listening to this, most of us have already done a lot of this work, right? And this is, that work of examining the patterns that our parents passed on to us and their parents passed on to them, and kind of stepping back and asking, like, is this something that I want to perpetuate, right? Like, we cause so much less harm to our children today than was to us when we were kids, or even to our parents when they were kids, right? We don't use physical punishment nearly as much. We don't, we care for our children as individuals. And that's the work, right? That's the work. It doesn't matter if, it may seem trivial, but that is the work that we're here to do, is we're here to unwind the karma that we incarnated into, and work to free all beings, right? Working to free all conscious beings from these patterns of karma, and just kind of untangling it and letting it breathe and letting it unwind and letting it, like shaking it off, right? Yeah, I'm just kind of watching those karmic rubber bands like kind of jiggle off and stop tightening around so tightly. Just looking to see, just checking in, like, how does that land in your body? How does that feel when, to let that kind of come percolating down in through your ajna, down through your throat as you hear these words and as you make mental conceptions about them, and then, down into the rest of your body. How does that land for you? And I think that's kind of what I wanted to share tonight, or today, what I shared last night that didn't record. And so I think I will end it here. So thank you for being with me, and I will see you soon.